Hi, everyone. Welcome. We'll give it a few more minutes for folks to trickle in. Hope everyone's doing well. Feel free to drop your information in the chat if you'd like to drop your name and where you're from as a hello to everyone attending today. All right. Okay, we'll give it another minute and then we'll get started. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, another Seattle in the webinar.
Oh, yes.
I'm in Seattle as well. Judith.
All right. Okay. I think we can go ahead and get started. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us for Houzz Pro's first official accounting webinar of the year of 2026. Projects Profit in the Year Ahead. My name is Andy Nelson. I am on the product marketing team with Houzz. I've been with Houzz for a long time. I have a very vast background in accounting and QuickBooks. So accounting is a bit of my passion. I work on our accounting related features and QuickBooks integration for Houzz Pro. I'll just quickly share the agenda and then I'll let our panelists go ahead and introduce themselves. So we will be talking about wrapping up 2025. We are in year-end processing right now. So beginning of the year, we'll be closing out, all of you will be closing out your 2025. Then we will talk about getting ready for 2026, starting off the year on the right foot from an accounting standpoint. And then we will have a Q&A and closing comments at the end. If you have any questions at all, there is a Q&A section. So I just ask that you please put your questions there. I'll do my best to answer those as we're going along. And then we'll also have our panelists answer some of those questions as they come up. Again, we'll have a Q&A section at the end. And yes, you will get a recording of this. So everyone that signed up will get a recording of the webinar. And yeah, let's get started. I'll hand it over. All right. I'll hand it over to Emilie.
Hi, Emilie Schaefer here. I am the founder and CEO of Logistis for Designers. We are a full service accounting firm. We do monthly bookkeeping, sales tax, CFO services, procurement support, pretty much whatever our clients need on the back end. We help support them in growing their business. And good to see you, Elise. I see one of our clients on the call.
Hi, everyone. I'm Morgan Boudreau. I'm the Vice President at Business by the Book. We are also a full-service bookkeeping and accounting firm based out of North Georgia, but we support clients all across the United States. And we have been working with Andy and Houzz Pro for a long time, so we're so excited to be here.
And I am Katelyn Williams. I am the Senior Client Manager at Logistis for Designers. So I work with Emilie on a day-to-day basis with many clients. I see we have a couple of our clients in the chat already, which is great. And I've been with the company for 3 years. And I help support mostly our procurement team and then several of our Houzz Pro higher end clients. So.
Great. Well, thank you all so much for being here. Let's dive in. So we're going to start with wrapping up 2025. So my first question is, as everyone is finalizing their 2025 books this month, what are the top 1 to 2 cleanup items you want every designer or construction business to double check?
Andy, you want me to answer that one, or?
Yeah, that'd be great.
The nice thing about January is it's a good time to start fresh with your books and also make sure everything's cleaned up for 2025. So there's a couple different things you want to do. I have more than 2 items, but the most important thing is you want to make sure all your invoices are paid. If they're not, you will have to report those depending on your sales tax and how you file your income taxes. So make sure that all invoices that are open are actually accurate and that you are going to collect on them, because you might have to work with your bookkeeper to write them off if sales tax was already reported, have them be written off as bad debt depending on variable factors or if you're connected to QuickBooks. Also make sure all your retainers are applied that need to be applied. You want to make sure that there's no paid proposals in Houzz Pro that are not invoiced. One of the main reports that we usually like to look at if you're integrated with QuickBooks is the collections report. The collections report will give you visibility to a lot of information. It will show you what invoices you have open. Depending on how your retainers are applied, it will show what retainers are still open and not applied, client credits, things like that. So you want to make sure the information on your collections report matches what's in Houzz Pro. The goal is that you want both systems to have the same information. If both systems don't, then you might have to go do some investigative work to figure out what the sync error is. Did something sync over with the wrong sales tax rate? Now's the time to make changes, because once you file your IRS taxes, you don't want to go back and change 2025. So really make sure all the data is accurate. If you're using QuickBooks, which we always recommend using the integration, make sure everything's reconciled to date. Make sure every checking account, every credit card matches your bank statements. And then in terms of reports before you file your taxes, review the P&L for any miscategorizations, and then review your balance sheet. I think those are the basics to start with.
Great. Morgan?
Yeah, great. So I agree with everything that Emily said. I would just add that we really want to focus on the balance sheet, especially around tax time, focusing especially on the payroll and sales tax liabilities. Your balance sheet doesn't start over on January 1st. It continues, it gets built upon. And so if your payroll liabilities are not mapped correctly, so the payroll taxes aren't reducing, on the balance sheet when they are posted, then nothing is going to be correct. And then it's going to snowball year after year after year. Same thing with the sales tax payment. You want the payment to reduce the liability. And that's where we see a lot of times when we get a new client that information is not always wrapped up correctly. And then, we have a lot of clients that have some intermingling of personal and business funds. And so we always want to check the distribution account, make sure that those items are being categorized correctly. And then, of course, go into the new year with a resolution to not do that as much. So those would be the 2 things that I would add.
And I'll make mine a little bit more specific for those that are filing on the cash basis, making sure that retainers have been applied so that you don't have unapplied income showing on your P&L, making sure that your purchase orders are created before payment is made so that you don't have unapplied expenses on the P&L as well. Checking that you don't have sales tax recorded to your P&L as well. We've seen a lot of bookkeepers forget that that is a balance sheet liability account, not a expense. And then just checking for your general categorization on your P&L. It's always important to make sure that costs for projects are above the gross profit line, and then overhead and admin expenses are below the gross profit line.
Great. Thank you all so much. So next question I have, as you review 2025, where do you see the most operational mess? And how would you advise people to clean that up before focusing on the new year? We'll go with Emilie first.
Oh, okay. I would say if you're integrated with QuickBooks, kind of to go back to the last question as well, if you're integrated with QuickBooks, check your collections report. That's where we see a lot of mess, a lot of cleanup when we get a new client. We recommend, and your collections report is your accounts receivables, basically. So you want to make sure whatever, there's a couple different ways you can look at this in QuickBooks. You can also do it in Houzz Pro only if you're using Houzz Pro. But we do recommend reviewing the collections report at the end of the year to see what stuff you have open. We see a lot of times that income is not being recorded to the invoice if you're integrated with QuickBooks. Maybe the payment, you're just using Houzz Pro, maybe you took the payment outside of Houzz Pro and the amount of the invoice doesn't match what cleared the bank. So it's really important to really review all your invoices and all your payments to make sure everything aligns. And that collections report is really important to clean up if you're integrated with QuickBooks at the end of the year, but we also recommend doing it before you file sales tax because you want all your invoices to be accurate. And then I would say the other thing that we usually see is not invoicing throughout the project. That's a big one. Waiting for the completion of the project before invoicing. That's not a practice that we teach. We see that being a big issue, especially if you have a project that goes a year or two. How do you ever get a clear financial picture if you wait until the end of the project to invoice? We truly believe that to have a clear financial picture, you do need to invoice throughout the project, and you do want to owe sales tax as you're collecting it. You don't want to wait 2 years to file sales tax and have a huge sales tax liability and not have the funds in your checking account ready to pay that. It just puts you in a very vulnerable place. So I would say that's one of the big operational mess we see.
Great.
Morgan?
Yeah, so I would say one of the operational mess items that we see is not staying on top of any sales tax rate changes, or if you're like in the state of Georgia, all of the counties have different rates, and so do in the cities that they're inside of, and so this is a great time of year to do a review of what sales tax rate all of your clients should be taxed at. And so just making sure that you're collecting the right amount. A refresher on, is shipping taxable in your state? Are design fees taxable in your state? Is product is taxable in your state? But just going through and making sure about that, so you can go into the new year refreshed on those rules. It will make your life a lot easier if you set up your invoices correctly the first time versus we reconcile all of our clients open their invoices upon filing the sales tax return, but oftentimes those invoices have been collected on before we catch an issue, and so you never want to have to go back to your client with like a sales tax admin mistake. So that's what I would say for operational mess focus.
Great. Katelyn?
Yeah, I would say for us, it's just making sure that your invoices match in both systems. So making sure that you're pulling the open transactions report from Houzz Pro, comparing that to your collections report to see what are the open invoices, and then pulling in your incoming transactions by project report with your QuickBooks collection report as well to kind of check, have all your retainers been applied correctly, have your proposals been paid and then invoiced correctly, making sure those are kind of cleaned up. Then checking, sales tax, always big thing for us, sales tax rates. We send out updates to our clients every time we get an update, and we check it every time we file as well, to make sure that you don't continue to pay the wrong rates, because that happens a lot. And then for also checking that you're actually collecting W-9s for vendors that provide services, because we will come at you the start of January going, hey, we need those. So making sure that you're collecting those as you're hiring service providers. And that way you're not having to wait until the very end of making sure that you have all that information for your vendors. Also knowing that they're legit too. So you want to go ahead and paying that correctly.
Great.
1099s always come in January.
It's that time of year. Yeah.
Good one.
Okay, let's see. Is there a metric from 2025 you wish more contractors and designers would pay attention to beyond just, did we make money?
Yes.
Emilie?
Yeah, I would say my top one would be look at your gross profit margin. Interior design, an interior design business or construction business can be very profitable if done correctly. So if you really keep an eye on that gross profit margin and make sure you're between 50 to 60%, we want our clients to be closer to 60%. That's when you're really going to make money. And you can track that on your financials. So I would say look at that. And the way you can be profitable is by billing for your time and markup on goods. It's a double whammy. So there's two different areas where you really can get those numbers up. So tracking that and making sure it stays within that margin is really important. And then making adjustments, not just at the end of the year, but at least quarterly, making adjustments so that you can remain profitable for the entire year. I would say that's one of the most important things to track.
Yeah, definitely. I think that my recommendation would be to make sure that our goal, our encouragement is that your design fees or service fees are covering 100% of your overhead expenses. And so if you're covering operating your business with just the service fee, then any product markup is pure profit on your, in your books or on your business. And so it's also a great way to stay in a budget and not overspend on travel or software or when it's just a way to keep the rails on things. And so we often compare those two numbers when we're doing review with our clients.
Yeah. And I would say also making sure that your categorizations in Houzz Pro are updated. Go through them on a yearly basis. Make sure that you have the right categories, that those categories are then mapped to, QuickBooks for your needs. And that way you're being able to track your sales and your costs correctly. They're going to match up. You're going to have defined what are your income accounts, and then showing your cost accounts offsetting those. So you can truly see your gross profit margin easily and quickly.
Yeah.
And let's see, we had two things. We did have a question before that. Someone had a couple people asked about the collections report. So in QuickBooks, there is a collections report. It shows you open invoices, amount that's open, total amount balance due, how many days past due it is. Houzz Pro just launched an open invoices report that is the equivalent on the Houzz Pro side. So if you go into your financial suite and go to reports, you'll see that under the open transactions. So that just came out fairly recently, but should be a good tool for you to track who owes you money in Houzz Pro. The other question we had, are you considering profit after what you pay yourself and your employees or beyond that? So essentially, are we looking at profit after overhead and all of that, payroll, things like that?
Yeah, it depends on your P&L. It depends how you have your categorization set up. But when we talk about gross profit margin, we're talking about above the line. So when we look at gross sales, so all your income, subtract all your cost of goods sold. So if paying yourself and your employees are below the line as an operational expense, then we're talking about not including that. Some companies do have those payroll costs as a cost account. I hope that answered your question. So it depends how you have your financial numbers set up. It depends if you're taking owner's draws or not, or if you're included in the payroll. So there's a couple different ways to answer that. But what we usually want to look at is your gross profit margin above the line before all your operating expenses.
Great. And another exciting Houzz Pro feature I'll just mention here, we will be launching very soon within Q1 a project profitability dashboard as well as a report. So everyone keep on the lookout for that. You'll probably see a little pop-up in your Houzz Pro account with me announcing that it's launched. So definitely a great tool that we're launching here very soon, where you can just look at your project, multiple projects or single projects, or one client, if you have a client with 2 or 3 projects going on, and you can get a granular breakdown of the profitability for your projects there. Okay, this is a big one I know that comes up. Projects that span multiple months or years. How should people handle projects that started in 2025 and are still ongoing as you're closing 2025, but you have that open project going into 2026?
Who wants to? I don't have to answer that one. Who want to answer that?
Yeah.
Morgan?
Making sure that invoice items match your orders. That would be something because otherwise your income is not recorded along with sales tax. You don't have an accurate picture of your business financials. And then making sure that you don't have proposals that are sitting year after year because none of that income is reported. And then you can get in trouble. So making sure that you're reporting your income timely, not only for sales tax liability, but for you to have visibility of if your margins are actual or not. Are you actually hitting the 50, 60 mark, or are you at 30 because you haven't tracked, you've tracked more cost than you have income? So that's a big one. And year after year, and making sure your retainers are being applied correctly. Because retainers seem to get forgotten on the balance sheet, and then at the end of a project and they're still sitting there, and what do you apply them to? So making sure that you're timely on checking retainers and checking that invoices are paid and that cash and cash.
Great.
Yeah, and I would just add to that utilizing a retainer when a project is going to span multiple years. If you get a large payment, if a client pays a retainer or a deposit on December 28th, and there's no cost to offset it, you can still leave it on the balance sheet as a liability. Same thing with if you're a construction company and you get lumber, you pay for a lumber order at the end of the year and it's inventory, it's going to sit in your warehouse until you can, invoice your client, and we can control a little bit of when these items appear on the P&L so that they are matched in the same period. And so it's just communicating with your bookkeeper, and then your CPA can help with also deciding like what the best tax strategy for you with the revenue recognition is. So we communicate with our client CPAs very closely when they have large projects that maybe are going to roll over into the next year.
Yeah, and I would add one more thing to that. Make sure your contract has some sort of disclaimer that if you need to change the terms with the client, that's in your contract. We've seen a lot of clients that have projects end up going 2 or 3 years, but that project locked in at like an old rate, and they're not able to bill what they're currently billing. So make sure that there is some sort of disclaimer that it's subject to change in the new year to reflect revised pricing, or however you want to word that, so that you're not locked into, let's say you're billing $100 an hour for your design time when you're first starting off your business, and your business has grown and now it's 2 years later, you're obligated to that $100 rate. So having that kind of in your contract to protect your business would be smart as well.
And I want to add, if you are continually having projects that span multiple years, talk to your CPA about becoming an accrual-based income tax filer, because that will be much more beneficial to you of moving your retainers onto the balance sheet, moving your cost of goods sold onto the balance sheet, rather than having them hit the P&L in that year that you paid for it.
Yeah.
Great.
A lot of good questions.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to prepping for 2026. So my first question is, once you've reviewed 2025, what's the first thing you like to do with clients to turn those insights into a 2026 plan? So old year, turning it into the new year plan.
I would say probably the most important thing would be to set up an operational budget. Look at the previous year, decide what you want 2026 to look like, decide how much money you want to make, set up those targets in either monthly or quarterly targets on how many projects you need to bring in, what that looks like for your team, do you need to hire, etc. And then also setting up a budget. So if you really want to grow, if that's your goal for 2026, then maybe you need to spend a little bit more money on marketing to get some more sales outreach in. Or maybe you need to spend a little bit more on your accounting services because you need more timely reporting to make those decisions, or if you need advisory services to help you set up these different targets and make sure you stay on track. So it really depends on what you want from the year, but do have in mind that you might need to spend a little bit more than what you spent in 2025 to reach your goals, depending on what you want for your business. So when we set up a budget, we usually look at what your income targets are. And then we also look at where you want to focus, and then we might do like a small increase from the previous year. And that's probably the most important thing that you would want to do right now to have a good, successful, profitable 2026. If you start thinking about it now and set up those targets, we have seen that it's easier for designers to stay on track and to have a good, successful year if you think about the end in mind and start to plan accordingly.
Yeah, I think definitely a budget is step one. That's where you have to start. when we are doing budget planning with our clients, one of the very first places that I like to start is in the subscriptions and software area. It's a really great place to make some significant room in your budget without impacting things that much, because we're just really happy to like subscribe or have a free trial and never cancel. And so you can find some hidden dollars there that you can allocate towards marketing or towards hiring a junior designer or an admin assistant. Those funds are better used somewhere else. And then I think that something just to keep in mind maybe for like November, December planning is that if you're not starting to think about your Q1 pipeline until you get back from the holidays in January, it's too late. And so we really need to make sure that you have an idea of what your income and revenue is going to look like in Q1, before Q1 starts and before the year. So having a clear pipeline, a clear picture of what the Q1 and Q2 pipeline is going to look like in January, especially for project-based businesses like the design and construction industries. It's not necessarily monthly recurring revenue that you can count on no matter what. So that's where I like to start in January.
And I'm gonna aim it towards Houzz Pro a little bit of make sure you have your budget set up in Houzz Pro. If you have a budget, make sure it's updated for the new year. There's new costs. You have new design fees. You have new people on your team. So make sure that's updated. Make sure all your sales tax rates are updated for everything, because that's going to affect your budget too, because sales tax rates change quarterly on most things, some states monthly, but most are quarterly. And then also making sure to clean up your projects in Houzz Pro. Anything that's inactive, archive it. You don't want to have to be selecting through a bunch of clients every time you're going through it. Vendors, the same. If you've decided you're no longer working with a vendor, clean up that list. Having a little bit of clarity on your project software is going to help you be able to see your decisions a little bit better. Also looking at what projects did you like? What projects brought you joy? What projects made you, feel good? Which projects got you published? Think about those projects in your budgeting, because those are the projects you're going to want to have again for the new year. So kind of thinking outside the box a little bit is going to help you as well.
Yeah, we have a lot of clients right now that are looking at their P&L by project, and they're figuring out which ones were most profitable and which ones brought them the most joy, and working with their marketing team to figure out a plan to reach that ideal client profile. So it's, hopefully those all align in your plan for 2026.
Great. We did have a question. When do I report profit from time billing if I billed the hours for December, but I paid it in January? Is that reported on 2025 taxes or 2026 taxes?
It depends on the date of the invoice. So if the date, well, here's a loaded question. It depends what you file. So usually a typical interior design business files sales tax on the accrual. So that means you're filing sales tax on the invoice date. And then you're filing IRS taxes on cash. So that's when the money is received. So they're both different. And that's why it's so important to pull the right reports when filing sales tax versus the IRS taxes. And that's why if you're a business that is, a little bit larger and you don't have just one small project, we do recommend integrating to QuickBooks, because in QuickBooks, you can pull cash and accrual reporting with a click of a button, and it makes it a lot easier to get the reports needed for the specific filing.
Great. All right. How do you like to approach cash flow planning for 2026 2026, especially for businesses with uneven project schedules or seasonality?
Caitlin, I'm going to let you answer that one first. I keep going first. You had a good answer for that one earlier.
No, I think you need to be reviewing your cash on hand estimate. We do a cash on hand presentation for our clients on a monthly basis. It helps you know what your available cash is, being able to track your liabilities, what you still owe, holding that cash aside for it, making sure that if you have retainers and credits that you're not spending that cash outside of what you need to purchase. And then also tracking the trend of year over year. We are a cyclical business. Construction and interior design, you both run in cycles. It might be different cycles. It might be different times based on your location, based on the type of clients you have. You may have longer cycles, but tracking what your previous trends were in prior years or prior quarters, and kind of being able to look at those on what you want to see in the new year. So making sure that, even if you have an odd project schedule, we have one client right now that, they've done all the design stuff, and then it's another 6 months, and then they're going to be purchasing finally. So you're going to know, like, okay, if I've made this timeline for this project, this is what I need to base kind of everything on. If it goes beyond that, let's look at it again. Where are we at in our timeline that we originally done? Maybe we can expand that timeline to see, okay, do I need to bring in some smaller projects to cover us until we do, product purchasing? So looking at trends is going to be really big, but tracking your liabilities, tracking your retainers, tracking your cash on hand is going to be huge for cash flow planning.
Yeah, and so I would just add that the tracking the liabilities can be, it can be hard with cash flow planning and making sure that you don't spend money that doesn't really belong to you, if it's all just sitting in one operating account. And so we, depending on our client's needs, often will recommend that a client will create a sales tax like checking account or savings account, depending on their bank. And if you're a quarterly or annual sales tax filer and you struggle with cash flow planning, that you can move your collected sales tax once the invoice has been paid into a separate account to sort of hold it and earmark it, that's not to be used for operational expenses. Same thing with retainers or deposits. So if a client pays you a large $100,000 deposit or project retainer that you're going to draw down from slowly, that you can move that also out of your operating account, put it into a separate account. You can pay your credit card out of that account when you buy their purchases, and then when they pay, like if you apply it to a design fee invoice, then you can apply it on the books and then just transfer the money from that retainer account into your operating account, and it helps you not spend money that you technically haven't earned yet. And so those are just, I guess, 2 practical tips for some cash flow planning.
Yeah, and I would just add that there's a lot of power of looking at your cash flow estimate. We recently, in the last year, added this to one of our main packages because there was so much valuable information in that. Basically, it's something you can definitely request from your accountant. It looks at your checking account balance, all the cash you have on hand, all the cash in your checking account, savings accounts, and then it takes out all your liabilities. So it takes out what you still owe your vendors, what you still owe sales tax, credit card debt, IRS taxes, and then you have a clear estimate of, hey, this is how much money you have to spend either to pay yourself or reinvest in the business. And having visibility to that is very important, to Morgan's point, so that you're not spending retainer money. You don't want to be using retainer money from one project to fuel another project. And that's really important. I would say another huge thing, a best practice that we usually teach, is to bill ahead for your design time. don't work for free. Even if you're billing hourly, collect retainers and then apply that retainer against what was actually worked. That puts you in a less risky position, because what we have found is that clients sometimes don't rush to pay your time invoices. They kind of drag their feet because it's not product, it's not something that they can see. So it's really important to have those funds before you do the work, because you are going to have to pay your team. You have to pay yourself. And the client walks away from a $10,000 design time invoice. That could be devastating for your business. So doing some of these best practices that can help put you in a position where you're more financially stable is definitely smart.
Great. All right, let's move on to the next question. So what is your advice for evaluating which types of projects were truly profitable in 2025, and then using that to shape what you say yes or no to in 2026?
Yeah, I think we kind of touched upon this earlier as well, like with the project P&L and QuickBooks. I think there's other reports that you can also pull in Houzz Pro as well. That Katelyn, what were those reports? Oh, I think we lost Katelyn's line.
Hey, there we go. You are muted.
Sorry, my husband was printing something in the background. For Houzz Pro, you want to make sure you're looking at the income and outgoing transaction reports by project and comparing those to see what your gross profit margin is. And then also looking for the financial overview on each project is helpful in Houzz Pro. It doesn't give you everything, but it does give you a lot of information.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing is to track your design time, regardless if you bill hourly or not. Having metrics to see, like, if your business model is we bill flat rate retainers for our design time, making sure you're still tracking the actual against that retainer. So if you charge $10,000 for your design time for a project and it took you 300 hours, divide that $10,000 by 300 to get what you actually made per hour on a project. And that can be very eye-opening to see, oh, we're not billing enough because I have to pay my team twice that an hour. So really tracking your design time, I think, is going to be really important to see if you need to adjust your billing process.
Especially the design principal or the business owner, because they're often the one, they're spending a lot of time on the project, and it's hard to do that. It's because they're not being paid. You're not tracking your time hourly to be paid like maybe your design assistant is, so it's really easy to not do it at all. But in a service industry like this, it is really important that even if you're not doing the clock in, clock out, that you're going back weekly, monthly, and putting in, some estimate amount is some information. Any information is better than not doing it at all. So, and I think that one thing I'm sorry, Emily, did you want to add to that?
Oh, no, I think that was Katelyn, but go for it.
Oh, I'm sorry, the box. The project profitability dashboard and all of that, it only works if you're tracking and using purchase orders in Houzz Pro. We see a lot of smaller or mid-sized firms not want to do that because of the administrative work involved in truing up the estimated freight and shipping versus the actual freight and shipping, or when Forehands charges you 10 times because they ship everything out individually and you have to post every single payment on there. It's a lot of work, and a good bookkeeping and accounting firm can help you lift some of that admin weight off of your shoulders, because that information is really vital into making these decisions about what types of projects are good projects, so that you can, put your marketing dollars towards those, and know what to say yes and what to say no to. So I'm sorry, Caitlin, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
You're good. I was just going to say, if you're also wanting to look at your time billing in Houzz Pro, looking at the time billing by project is good. If you have team members that don't necessarily track it to the project, there's also the time billing by team member, and that is good. But make sure you're updating the rates that you're paying your staff. Otherwise, it will not be accurate.
Let's see. And we had a question. How do you know financially you're ready to bring on a full-time person?
That's a good question. I would look at your numbers, see if you can afford it. And then you have to think about, what is that going to free up for you so that you can bring on more work? So you kind of have to look at a couple of different areas. Like if you have a waiting list, if you're busy and you're saying no to projects, bring on some help, have them focus on the procurement side, the ordering, the purchase orders, communicating with vendors, following up with lead times, have them do more of that admin work and order admin. And then you can focus on communicating with clients and doing the actual design work. And if you have the budget, if you can plan accordingly, and it allows you to bring on more projects, then it might be a good opportunity. And then also, just like, if you're really busy and you can't keep up and you need some help, that's probably a good indicator. But then you also have to have updated financial numbers to make sure that it's a smart business choice. And, setting up projections or looking at your numbers and seeing how much it will cost you, because there might be some added cost to bring on someone as well, depending on the payroll contractor. Oh, go ahead, Morgan.
That's what I was going to say, is that if you're going to bring them on with payroll, there are additional costs with payroll taxes and all of the, even the payroll subscription costs is a fee that you may not have at that time. So, evaluating whether or not you want to bring them on as a subcontractor first, and then eventually roll them into a full-time employee.
Yeah, and you can set up metrics, like if you bring on an employee, that you can tell them, hey, in this design business, you have to bill back 80% of your time in Houzz Pro towards a project. That way, like if you are billing hourly, all that time that you're paying them gets billed back to the client, and you're charging a markup on that. So at the end of the day, you're going to make money on their time. So it should be another area for your business to grow. So if you have that all set up and have reporting to track that, it ends up being really beneficial.
Great. All right. And have one last question, and then we'll see if there's any more Q&A and some closing comments and some information I'd like to share with everyone. So final question. When you look at your clients using Houzz Pro, what process changes do you recommend for 2026 to make bookkeeping and reporting run smoother?
I would say mine would be ask for the cash flow estimate. That would be a helpful one, or have some sort of reporting in Houzz Pro or QuickBooks to give you that information on your end. And then I would say make sure that you're using the purchase orders. Make sure that you're tracking and have visibility to the difference between the cost on an invoice to what you paid the vendor. If those don't match up, that could be eating into your markup. And it's really important to track that. And if it does go into your markup, you need to go back and bill the client additional. And so your accountant, if you don't have a team member to do that extra legwork, your accountant can help you track that. And they can help you track what was invoiced against what you actually paid. And that really can be a game changer for your business.
Yeah, my answer to that would be focusing on the purchase orders, making sure that they match the final receipt 100%, especially with the freight and the shipping. And then, but we've even caught where, they only delivered 2 chairs like on your order, but on your receipt has 3 or 4 chairs on it. And so, when you're paying that close attention to everything, you just start catching mistakes like that on the billing side. So.
And I would say for me, it's making sure that your processes are good in Houzz Pro. So making sure that if you're not getting paid 100% on a proposal, you are collecting a retainer. You are not getting paid on that partial proposal. Then making sure if you're going from proposal to invoice, except for time billing, we know that just goes directly to an invoice. And then from there, doing your purchasing directly off the purchase orders in Houzz Pro so that you are able to update them, and making sure that when you make the payments that they do match actuals. And then also making sure that if you have any returns or credits or things like that that you need to be doing, being able to track those outside of Houzz Pro right now, because I know vendor credits are not a thing yet. Andy, make it happen.
We're working on it.
Make it happen.
Make it that is one thing. A lot of designers, you want to keep your actuals, and that can be a little difficult if you're doing a lot of returns on things. So making sure that you're still tracking your returns in QuickBooks so that you have accurate P&L by project.
Great. We did have a question. What report do you use to track the POs versus the invoiced amount? And I'll have a little follow-up to this question as well for an upcoming feature.
I have several.
Yeah, Katelyn.
I love the selection tracker in Houzz Pro. It is, I think, the easiest way to see what you have put on a proposal for the item, what you have put on an invoice, and what you've actually paid the vendor on the PO. And then you can actually see if you've made your markup on that, or if you didn't, and then you can know like, oh, I need to make sure on my next proposal that I add in a little extra because I didn't make markup on that. Or if you overpaid for something, you're able to put it on another proposal, and you're able to see that in real time as it's updated. And that's why it's really important to keep things updated as they're coming through in Houzz Pro.
And I love how it shows up in red if you're over. That is so helpful to have that visual. That's great if you're using Houzz Pro only, but you still have to update the purchase orders to what actually cleared. Another good way is if you're integrated with QuickBooks, your bookkeeper should be able to send you a list of charges that didn't match purchase orders. So if you're following best practices in Houzz Pro of going from proposal to invoice to purchase order, and then ordering off of the exact purchase order, that payment syncs to QuickBooks, and then your bookkeeper should not be booking anything unless it matches to a purchase order to vendor cost. And then they can send you a list of anything that doesn't match. And that information you can use, go back to the vendor and see why there's a discrepancy, why Houzz Pro shows a purchase order of $2,000, but your bank cleared for $3,000. And that can be very, very useful to make sure you hit your margins.
Great. Yeah, and I mentioned I have a little follow-up to that, but before I get to that, let me just share my screen. So if you are looking for an accountant, if you are looking to get in touch with one of our amazing panelists today because you need an accountant, you can go to our Houzz Pro vendor portal, Business by the Book, and Logistis are featured here, as well as other accounting partners. They are all Houzz Pro accounting certified. I know all of these folks. I've known them for a very long time. So if you are looking for an accountant or a bookkeeper, please feel free to reach out here. You can also get to our vendor portal. It's up here under Pro Resources, Vendors. You can also go into your Houzz Pro account. In the left navigation bar at the very bottom, there's a little question mark for support, and you'll see the providers directory, which will take you there as well. Before we close out and take any, feel free to throw any last minute questions in the Q&A section. I wanted to mention that we do have several new features coming out this quarter. We have our Gusto payroll integration, which is launching very, very soon. I am dropping my email, my Houzz email, in the chat. So if you have questions about any of these features or questions following up the webinar, you will get a recording emailed to you of the webinar. But if you have any other follow-up questions, feel free to email me. So we have our Gusto payroll integration coming up. If you'd like more info on that, please let me know. We have our project profitability dashboard as well as report coming out very soon in Q1. So that goes alongside with how do you see what was, purchase orders versus invoices. All of that will be there, including time entries, expenses. Speaking of expenses, we will also be opening up expense sync to QuickBooks. I know a lot of our longtime Houzz Pro users have been asking for this, so you will very, very soon be able to create expenses in Houzz Pro and then choose which of those sync over to your QuickBooks account, which will make bookkeeping and matching in your bank feed much, much easier. We are working on customer credit memos. That's in the works. So you will see that coming this year. And overall, I just love any feedback from any of our pros, any of our users. Feel free to email me with questions or feedback. Let's see if we have any last minute questions.
I also think, to add to that, Andy, the updates that you guys have been doing this year have been great. We're really excited about the Gusto integration.
Yeah.
Most of our clients Gusto, so that is such a great one. We're excited about that one.
Thank you. Yes. One final question we had was typical market percentage that designers use on products.
So it's going to vary by where you're located, but on average, we see between 25 to 35%.
Aim for 35. Custom pieces, set up trade accounts, don't shop retail. You can have it.
Don't shop retail is like number one rule. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Great.
Definitely.
All right. Well, thank you all so much. This was so wonderful having you all on. Hopefully this was I know it was great advice for our contractors and designers to get started, get 25 closed, get 26 started off on the right foot. Everyone in attendance, again, if you'd like to reach out to either of these firms, you can do so through the vendor portal or the service provider directory in your account. And like I said, feel free to email me with any questions. And thank you so much again to our panelists, and thanks everyone for attending.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.